Diddle-a-dum-dum, British Strongman Podcast. Today I want to talk about how we can program events that are hard to measure. So we all know how to measure progressive overload on our deadlifts, our squats, our overhead, and when we can add in the little increments of weight. And we usually use intensity, volume in terms of sets and reps. We usually manipulate these variables and it gives us plenty to see measurable and quantifiable progression. But I think where a lot of people get put off with measuring progress and training for specific strongman events is they don't know how to make it progressive. What do you think, Shane?
Yeah, well, there's loads of different ways to progress, isn't there? And a lot of people limit themselves by, like you say, just doing those ones that you just mentioned there. Even something as simple as, I think you actually posted this a couple of weeks ago about the, I think you've been doing cyclist squats or something, and they were hurting your knees. And you mentioned that over a few weeks, that although the rep sets, volume, frequency hadn't changed, you were happy because you were no longer feeling any pain. So that's another way where you can measure progress. And also the events, specifically talking about events, they're so skill-based, and you can break down a certain event into like a couple of different sections of skill. So you can then hone in on one specific section of it. Like, for example, the stone load, if you were, kept pulling it into your chest, for example, and it was, you were good at lapping it, but the load, you put it too high on your chest. A progression method could be just the skill progression of making sure that the stone lands in the same place every time. And even if that doesn't necessarily transfer over to more weight instantly, you've still progressed within a couple of weeks of practice, and eventually the weight will, start to show itself.
Yeah, I think that's a great example. Let's talk about stone because that's there's many people who train at the gym. They'll maybe train events once a week or whatever, and they might have. And if they go to a gym where the kind of strongman equipment's a bit of an afterthought, and they've got like two dusty stones that are outside to pick from. They've got like a big 140 that no one's ever moved, and they've got like a 105 kilo stone that they can do confidently, but it's maybe a little bit light. What kind of whereas a lot of people will take the approach of, right, well, the 140 is too heavy, I'll go with the 105, and they'll just have a bit of a piss about one session, and then that'll be the training. Whereas let's write a little hypothetical 4-week block for somebody who has got just an access to a 105 kilo stone. So
not the so they've got the 105 but not the 140.
Yeah, imagine they've just got access to one stone. They could probably do it for a set of 5 if they're really pushing it. Probably this stone is like their 5 rep max, let's say, if they were doing a 60 seconds over a 48-inch yoke. Let's throw some progressions out there that they can do, and little different things that they can focus on to give people ideas. And by the way, this is like me and Shane are just going to come up with loads of random stuff here and just give you loads of different variables that you can give for different blocks of training. So I'll take it away. So basically we could do like a 4-week progression. You could do something like, say, right, we've established that it's about my 5 rep max. So if I do doubles with the stone to accumulate a decent amount of volume over the session, I could do five or 6 doubles or something. So option 1, you could do, right, week 1, I'm going to do 4 sets of 2. Week 2, I'm going to do 5 sets of 2. Week 3, 6 sets of 2. Week 4, 7 sets of 2. Another variation, another progression thing you could do if you wanted to keep the the sets and the reps the same. If you wanted to just do, right, well, I've got 15 minutes at the end of my deadlift session to get a little bit of stone working. So I don't really have time to do many more than 4 sets of 2. So what you could do is week 1, you can go 4 sets of 2 to 48 inches. Then week 2, you could go four sets of 2 to 54 inches. Week 3, you could go to 57, 58 inches. Week 4, you could test your height max, and you could say, right, build up in height, stack a load of plates or a load of blocks on top of each other, and do your 4 sets of 2, but finish on a height 2 rep PB. There's two little 4-week blocks there that anybody can plug in with just. So you give us an example, Shane. What would you?
Well, I'll stretch it to like 6 weeks. So like 6 weekers. So what I'd always do is I'd have to set the goal at the start as well, so that I knew what my outcome wanted to be. So I would do, if they've loaded it for 5, depending on how it looks, I would say, even if you went for a set of 6 or a set of 7 or 8 or something in 6 weeks, that'd be my goal. I'd be thinking to myself, I want to do better than I did last time.
Yeah.
So I'd break it down. So week 1, we'd work on like the lap as a focus. So 2 laps, 1 load, every minute on the minute for 10 minutes. So that's the reason why I chose that is 5 rep max, one load every 10 minutes is 10 reps. So you kind of done 10 reps with the volume, these 5 rep max. Week after, week 2, focus more on the load. So 1 lap, 1 extension, 1 load. Similar thing every minute, 10 minutes, or you could even do every 90 seconds there, or probably stray 2. And then you've doubled your loading volume there. You've gone for kind of 20 total reps loaded. Well, not technically loaded, because half of them's an extension, but you're getting that practice in loading. And then week 3, I would probably do a couple of sets of 3, like 3 by 3, 5 by 3, something like that, getting closer to repping near that 5 rep max. Week 4, I would pick a weakness. So if I thought my lap or the load was the weakness, I would do a similar session to whichever one. Session 1, we did the lap. Session 2, we did the extension. So week 4, I will be making sure to do a weakness weakness week. Week 5, I'll do something like, I'll probably go for 2 sets of 5, because I'll be hoping by this time that it's not a 5 rep max. So I'll do 2 sets of 5 loading. And then the week after, I do an AMRAP, 1 set of AMRAP. That is some random undulating that I would just come up with off the top of my head.
Yeah, and you know what, mate? Listening to that, I just think it's fucking absolutely brilliant, and that's why I love like talking about the shit on here, because we can just bounce ideas off each other, and like all of a sudden, like somebody listening to this who can relate to this kind of scenario where they've only really got one kind of stone that they can kind of work with. Like I've got clients who are training stone at the minute, for instance, and they might have like 100 and then a 120, and they're like, the 100 they can get loads of volume and practice in, but the 120 is like costing them they might do 1 or 2 reps at that in the 20, 30 minutes that they're doing stone. So it's like very costly in terms of like what you're actually doing in your training time. So just throwing some throwing ideas around there. There's so many variables that we can progress, and what you can do is I think a big problem that I see when people are training these kind of like these scenarios which are maybe a bit harder to measure it, and people are just doing like, say, a random kind of event session every so often, is people tend to max out, and it's just costing you like potential progression. I think if you're randomly doing something every so often and you're just maxing it, you're not really going to get much progression out of it. And I know some people who follow me train will think, fuck me, you max every week on loads of different things. But the things that I max every week, say I do like, say, a max effort set of deadlifts on Monday or whatever, I'll also do a shitload of skill volume and like other kind of work at different intensities at different parts of the week. So anything that I max on, I'll be doing loads of graft on at different points. So changing over to say something like, say, a grip hold, like a Hercules hold, for instance, if someone's training a Hercules hold, as an example of an event, like I think what quite a few people seem to do is like make an effort to go to the gym where they can train the Hercules hold like before the comp, do this kind of maxing it kind of approach to training it. Whereas I think what you could be better doing in training for a Hercules hold is doing stuff like say other grip holds, like a frame hold for instance, and actually cycling intensities in there. So instead of just going like, say, for a max effort set. Anyway, I'm just fucking rambling here, Shane. You chip in with something here, mate.
No, I know what you mean. But I think people make the mistake of is they don't track stuff like on a Hercules hold. Obviously, you don't have a 3-rep max, 5-rep max, an 8-rep max, a 10-rep max, but you can have a 20-second PB, a 30-second PB, a 45-second PB,
exactly.
PB. And you can chip away at all these things and rotate them weekly, because it's better as well, because if you have a Hercules hold in a comp, and obviously if you don't have a Hercules hold to train, what you do is you just pick the closest setup to the Hercules hold and just forget that it's not and just progress.
Yeah, get on like a kind of continuum or pathway where you're actually seeing some progression with the thing that's going to have some transferability to it. It doesn't need to be that, does it? It could be like a frame hold. It could be.
Yeah, because what you could do is, what I would do if it was me, if I had a Hercules hold in a comp, say I had 10 weeks, I'd probably try to go to the comp equipment week 1 or 2 or something. And I'd use that session as like to get like some ballpark figures. So I'd do like how much can I hold for 30 seconds? How much can I hold for 60 or 45? And I'd just write some numbers down as to where I'm starting. Yeah. And then I'd probably pop, for me, if it was me, I'd just do farmer's hold or something. And I would pop 4 to 6 weeks out of graft on that. Then probably 3 to 4 weeks out from the comp, I might go back and just check to see that I've made progress on the specific event. If I hadn't, I'd be like, right, maybe I need to be more specific and drive to this Hercules hold. But everything transfers over, so you'd be very rare to be in that situation. Usually you'll see loads of improvements and you'd be like, right, now I know if I add 10, 15 seconds to this farmer's hold here, it carries over to 10 seconds on the Hercules hold, so I kind of know where I'm at now. And then in the future, you've got this information as well to take forward, so you won't have to do the traveling and stuff in the future if you felt confident that it was going to carry over. But you've got to remember that you with Hercules hold, the most common thing people do is they put on comp weight and they just hold it.
Yeah.
And then they try it again and again and again. And it's like, well, let's find out what comp weight is, find out how long you can hold it for. And if it's like 20 seconds, then you need to be working in the kind of 30 to 40 second range to make sure that you're going to improve into that on the Hercules hold. So then I would cater my farmer's hold to be more around that kind of time scale.
Yeah. So a thing that I like with kind of programming or peaking for a Hercules hold, for instance, like I'm like a massive fan of frequency. So I'd be like, if I was like 6 weeks out from a comp with Hercules in, I'd want to be doing that 3 times a week, but I wouldn't want to be to do it 3 times a week. It wouldn't be 3 hard sessions going for a similar kind of thing, if you will. So what would be So Hicksy's got a new Hercules Hold at the gym, and I was talking to him about it yesterday, and I gave him an example, and he was just like testing it, and he did like whatever it was, level 60, and we did like 60 seconds ish or whatever, and I said to him, I said, instead of just trying to progress that each like every week, going and do one max effort set, I said, now you've got that data, like undulate it a little bit and do like, say, if you've established you can do at that level, you can do 60 seconds and it's kind of max effort. Could you do 2 to 3 sets of 45 seconds at that weight 1 week? Could you go a little bit heavier than that, but just cut it down to 20 seconds and then do more sets? So say it's level 60, could we go up to level 80 week, like session 2, but just do 20 seconds or so, but do a few more sets? Could you on your next session go a little bit like heavier than that and just do 10 seconds, but do 5 or 6 sets? And then the next session, you're back to the just wait there, Shane, sorry.
So the good thing about undulating your Hercules Hold as well is sometimes if you don't get a chance to practice in the competition, you don't know what kind of time frame you're looking at for a good place. So changing the weights and going heavy and a bit lighter for long means that when you hold the Hercules Hold for the first time in the comp, if you didn't have the luxury of trying it, then at least you're like prepared for something. Where I was training this Hercules Hold for I just assumed it was going to be like 45, 60 seconds. So in training, everything I was doing was kind of over 30 seconds. And then when they let the weight into my hands, I was like, oh shit, like this is going to be about 20 seconds because it was a lot heavier than I expected. And the winning time in that comp was, I remember it was something like 40 seconds. And that was somebody who, you know, was expected to win that event. And most people around 30 mark because it was just really heavy. But I'd been training 45 to 60 second holds and it just didn't carry over at all. If anything, it made my hands probably would have got a similar time if I didn't even train it, to be honest with you.
Yeah. So I think what's good about undulating intensities like that, or undulating, like, I suppose basically undulating intensities is like kind of a posh way of just saying, like, I look at it like this: if you're training something, any exercise or any event 3 times a week, right? You can't go heavy, can you? You can't go heavy 3, or if you are going heavy 3 times, like, you're going to get to the point where you plateau very quickly, in my opinion. You're just going to accumulate so much fatigue. So basically, I think in my head, right, if I'm training something 3 times a week, which I do most things anyway, at least 3, most of my main exercises, I'll think, right, well, 1 hard, 1 medium, and 1 easy. And I just think that is such a simplistic way for people to have a look at their own program. Instead of every time you train exercise X, it has to be like you're trying to get a linear progression on your hard session. You're just gonna, like, say if you're doing a Hercules Hold and you're adding, say, right, I want to add an extra 2 seconds on that for every week. Like, you're soon going to get to the point where you're fucking really disappointed. Whereas if you say, right, well, I'm going to do that for my hard session, but I'm going to come back. I'm going to try and get my 2 second progression on my 55 seconds max effort set. I'm going to get that in 4 sessions time, because the next time I train that, I'm going to have had an extra medium session at, say, if you're doing the Hercules, where I'm doing some like kind of pretty easy sets of 30 to 40 seconds where I'm just accumulating volume with the weight in my hands and stuff like that. And then you might have, like, say, an extra session that's like, say, it might be 6 sets of 20 seconds that's piss easy, where you're actually just playing around with different technique. You're trying to hold you're trying to hold it differently in your hands. You're trying to open your fingers up a little bit. You're trying to close your fist a little bit. You're trying to separate your different hand positions and stuff like that. Whereas if you're just doing the kind of hard session and trying to linearly progress for your comp, you might get to the point where you're 3 weeks into that, and then you're fatigued from something else. Your hands might be sore from deadlift or something like that, and then you come in and then you don't get your 2 seconds progression, and then you're feeling like, oh, your session, oh God, I'm not progressing on this. Whereas actually, if you have like basically these kind of undulating or different intensities to work at, then you're just going to be able to milk like kind of linear progression on these for longer, in my opinion. I'm a massive fan of that, by the way, Shane, for like all kinds of training.
Yeah, well, it works on especially when stuff like when you got to manage recovery on certain things, like certain events just heavy, aren't they?
Yeah.
And when you do, like, say you do an easy yoke session, that would be the time when most people would probably just skip it and take the rest. But if you do the easy yoke session, like you say, you're getting the frequency in. You can, as long as you think, because it's like you don't want to be like a big mongo about it and just do your yoke run up and down, because then you don't get anything out of it really. But thinking and learning and playing with hand position and foot position and start position and thinking about your strides and your stride length and all this stuff, you can come away from that easy yoke session thinking, fuck me, I feel like I've really clicked with it going to my heavy session. Whereas if you just went through the motions, then you're just spinning your wheels. You're not going to progress anywhere like that on those easier days.
Well, yeah, that's it. Well, let's use the yoke as a little example of how you can undulate the training. And this could be in 1 week, right? This is how you could train yoke 3 times in a week. If you need to bring your yoke up for your comp, here's an example of how you can do it, right? Say, for instance, you're training for a 300 yoke for 20 meters at your next comp, right? Your max effort, your hard session could be 3 sets of 20 meters at 270. Time each set, and trying to keep the times around the same time. What you could do a couple of days later, you could do for your easy session, almost like a recovery thing. You could do something like, say, 10 sets of 10 meters EMOM with 150, where you're focusing on different hand widths, starting with your feet in different stances, different widths. You're trying to use different footwork patterns, shorter strides, longer strides and stuff, because you can iron that out in the speed session.
Yeah, and on the 10-meter runs, they're brilliant for teaching you to start fast, because a lot of people take the first 10 meters to get up to top speed. So you can use those 10-meter skill days to try and get up to a decent speed by 5 meters. As well, working on your hand position and stuff, but thinking about when you break stuff down like this, guys, think about which area of the yoke are you weakest at. Like, some people are weakest those first 10 meters. It takes them ages to get going. So that's the time when you can fix that, basically.
Yeah, and then a couple of days later, the third session could be starting at something like, say, it could be 180 to 200 kilos, four sets of 40 meters, where the focus is on no time. You're not trying to be fast. You're not trying to be speedy. You're just trying to accumulate some volume with that time under tension, and make sure that even if you're just plodding along with it, you're just getting used to that yoke on your back, and you're just building up that unilateral conditioning. You, like people who have like suffer from like shin splints or bad knees, or they get back pump or sore shoulders when they're doing yoke or stuff, use this session to iron it out and just try little tweaks in position, like I did when I did the 1 mile yoke stuff and that. Like, I look back at that and I learned so much. But now I've learned how to practically get the benefits from that and put it into someone's practical program each week, if you will. Like, I've got guys that are trained who were good at pretty good at heavy yoke, but then moderate weight yoke, the complaining about like shin splints and bad knees and stuff like that. And I feel like that this is a way that you can improve the conditioning aspect of that rather than just going kind of heavy, if you will. But working at these kind of undulating the intensities, or keeping it in simple terms, having a hard, moderate, and easy session on the implement is just so beneficial, because all these kind of, if you're scared when you see 300 yoke written down and you're doing 270, 280, and then your coach has written you a few cues to practice, try hands lower, try hands higher, try squeezing your upper back, try, like, fuck me, it's really tough when you're doing like a maximal weight and you're just concentrating on your back not collapsing or your knees not snapping on every step.
Yeah, you need to, the heavy sets you need to do, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. The heavy sets, you just need to fucking go ham, don't you? And just get up for it, turn your tunes on and be aggressive and not be thinking about all these like kind of little intricacies that you could do with the...
Yeah, you do them on the lighter weights. Once they're ingrained, you won't think you'll just pick it up, do, and you'll have a perfect positions and strides and everything because you've learned them with the lighter weights. I always say this: nobody comes in the gym. The first personal trainer they have from fucking DW, even he knows you don't put 100 kilos on the bar and say, right, Sally, we're going to learn to deadlift. They put maybe like a 5 plate aside or even a wooden plate to get it the right height. They drill it. But strong men come into yoke, and because they've got a bit of a background, they're like, right, let's put 20s on each corner. Oh, that was fast, that. Let's put more 20s on each corner.
Yeah, you're completely right, mate. So just going back to the original thing of, like, say, events that are hard to measure. So stuff like, say, forward hold and crucifix hold and stuff like that. Like just have a go instead of thinking, right, well, my comp weight forward holds 20. Oh, fucking hell, I can only manage 20, 30 seconds or something. I'm going to try and beat that next week. And then you get disappointed week 3 that you can't just linearly progress, especially when you're not accumulating any work either. You're not going to get any better. It's just going to be by chance. Are you actually, like, how much fatigue are you carrying, basically, to how well you're going to do on that? Like, so stuff like, say, forward hold, give yourself a few options. Like, if you're comp weights, if you're 6 weeks out from a comp and you're doing 20 kilos, like, just think, imagine what you're like in your comp mindset where you're 20 kilos, you've got all your kit on, you're smelling salts, you're telling you what a superhero you are and all that shit. Like, compare that and how you feel. That's probably going to feel like maybe 17-ish in training. Yeah. So maybe you could grab a 17.5 dumbbell and use that as your measure and your marker. Stay nice and chilled, get your measure on that. And use that as your hard session. Then you could do 12.5. You could grab a 12.5 where you're going way past your target. Say your target for the comp is 40 seconds. Why don't you do some easy sets of 12.5, doing 50 to 60 seconds, just getting used to multiple sets of that, and that feeling of that kind of the muscle burn and whatnot. And then maybe do like a moderate session where you do a few sets at 15 at that kind of 20 to 30 second range. And basically you've given yourself there, if you just pick those 3, you've given yourself, depending on how you feel when you go in the gym and when you train, you've given yourself 3 things that you can kind of, if you try and linearly progress on these 3 different things, the likelihood is you're probably going to be able to, like, linearly progress for a few weeks, for at least 2, 3, 4 weeks or whatever on a couple of them. And then one of the variables, if that gets hard to progress, so you think, fuck me, I'm maxing here, you just change up that variable a little bit. Yeah. If you do, like, say 17.5 for 3 weeks in a row, trying to go a couple of seconds further on your max effort session, and then the fourth week you fail, just right. Well, I'm going to change it now. I'm going to change up the stimulus. I'm going to go to comp weight. I'm going to go to 20, but I'm not going to go to failure because I'm going to build on this the next few weeks. And I'm going to do like an RPE 8 set of on 20, where you might do the 20 for 25 seconds, where you could have possibly done ground out 30, 35. And then the next week you can kind of build on that. But your other two kind of sessions that are different intensities, you're just linearly progressing from the first session. Does that make sense, Shane?
Yeah, I think it's important to say as well, like when you write these sessions down, like say you did it on yoke and stuff like that, you don't have to do like, say you write heavy Monday,
yeah,
and you come in and you feel like crap, swap it for your lighter skill day, and then when you feel good, do the heavy one. So you don't have to like. A lot of people, I've said this before, where people said, "Oh, I had this thing in my training program, and it went terrible. I felt like crap. I was this, I was that. Can I redo it on the speed day? I knew it wasn't going to happen, and I'm like, well, just swap it. Like, use a bit of common sense. If it feels like absolute crap, just and you're doing it once, twice, 3 times a week, swap it out for the lightest, the most recovery session that day, and hit it, because then you're going to come away from the gym feeling like you've achieved something and feeling like you've progressed, instead of coming away with a negative mindset like,
yeah,
I knew it wasn't going to happen. I knew all day it wasn't going to happen. I knew when I was warming up it wasn't going to happen. I'm like, well, don't do it then.
yeah, brilliant. Right, we'll wrap it up there. Nice one, Shane. Great stuff. We'll talk about that topic again. There's loads of stuff we can talk about. Right, nice one. Peace out.
Cheers, mate. Bye.